Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just say as a small business owner that the more rules and regulations that agencies pump out, the more they help big business and hurt small business. Because the big businesses are the ones that have the legal teams on staff to help them comply with it. And as a small business owner, the rules and regulations and trying to comply with them are a huge challenge and take away from the business owner's ability to do their job. And so I think we should do this. And let me just tell you this about these agencies. And I'll go back to the reason we wrote the RPM Act a few years ago. The EPA, by law, was specifically prohibited from trying to regulate race cars. And yet they did it anyway. And they wrote that rule dealing with race cars in the middle of a section that dealt with large engines, engines for locomotives, engines for big ships, engines for things that didn't have anything to do with the race cars. They went in there and wrote one little bitty paragraph so that they could turn around and try to regulate people's dirt track cars. Well, to the EPA director's credit at the time, I asked her a question about it, and she said, we don't have the authority to do that, and we're not going to. But somebody at the EPA, they knew they were violating the law. I give the director credit for being honest and saying that she knew that was a violation of the law. But they put that rule on catalytic converters in race cars in the middle of a heavy engine rule writing section that dealt with locomotive engines and big ship engines. That's how deceitful the people in these agencies are. As far as the director that Mr. Massey was talking about, I can't believe that he actually, I believe you when you say that. I'm not questioning you. I'm saying if he did that, he's got to go. I mean, if he's that partisan that he would call out an individual member, he's got to go.
Well, and what I would say is if you look at the EEOC, it does not have any rulemaking authority whatsoever. Yet through guidance documents and quasi-rules and answers to frequently asked questions, they're issuing rules all the time that are illegal, but most people don't know that the EEOC does not have legal authority, statutory authority to issue regulations. The ATF adopted a regulation banning bump stocks, and they did not have the regulatory or the statutory authority to do that, and the Supreme Court has so held. But that's the other thing is we have agency after agency after agency that's actually issuing regulations that are well outside of their legal authority.
Let me ask you that from the small business owner standpoint, I agree with you on that. But the man or the family who hired you, did they have to pay your legal bills?
Yes, it cost over $1 million, and when I sought attorney's fees from the federal government, after having won that lawsuit, I was not able to get my attorney's fees, but it cost him $1 million in attorney's fees, expert witness fees, and costs. We ended up winning. It was a 2-week trial, but that was an agency that came after my landowner for moving an irrigation ditch. It was a test case for the EPA to try to take control over irrigation ditches under the auspices of the Clean Water Act.
But they passed a rule that the court said was illegal or not legal.
Their enforcement action was illegal.
Their enforcement action is illegal. It cost that American citizen $1 million out of their own pocket. Mm-hmm. Did the agency or anybody at the agency have to pay any of those fees, or did the American citizen?
He had to pay it. He had to pay it.
So let me give you another suggestion. We need to get to loser pay with these government agencies. Where if the agency finds somebody and they lose in the courtroom, because it's already David versus Goliath when you're going up against a federal agency. But if you're an American citizen and you take on a federal agency and you win, that agency should have to pay your legal fees.
We have what's called the Equal Access to Justice Act, and it is supposed to do that. But what I have found in the work that I have done over the years is they will pay for, they'll do sue and settle lawsuits with environmental groups such as the NRDC, Sierra Club, and those organizations. But if you have somebody like my landowner, my gravel pit owner, I've represented, my Farm Bureau. When I win those lawsuits against federal agencies, such as delisting the gray wolf population or those things, the courts will not grant attorney's fees to our side of the aisle.
We're going to fix that. Thank you, and I yield back.
Chair, thanks, the gentleman yields back.
Yeah, I just have a radical idea. Rather than trashing the CBO findings, let me make a suggestion that we pick up the phone and call them if you have questions. And my second suggestion is that if you want a CBO analysis sooner, don't let them know the Friday after Thanksgiving when you're bringing up a bill.
I'm not, with all due respect,
No, I'm
Mr.
not talking-
McGovern,
I'm
I'm
not
not talking about the analysis. I'm talking about the fact that he is posting things on
I'm
Facebook.
not addressing what you're talking about. I'm addressing some of the other things
Okay.
that were said today. I mean, we should actually value objective numbers, and if you have a question with them, you ought to call them. I thank the chairman. I yield back.
Thank you. The gentleman yields back. Any further members wishing to question this panel? If not, this panel is excused.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else seeking to testify